Well, there's a lot of discussion as to whether we're in a housing bubble. Let's put aside terminology for the moment and all agree that house prices are high. And the other thing which is often ignored in this is that rent as a proportion of income is also implicitly high. And when you add on other non-discretionary spending, be it healthcare, education, utilities, insurance, whatever else is considered to be inflexible, it leaves much less of a pool of discretionary spending, and we're starting to see that in the retail sector over here. It's not their only problem, but it certainly is definitely an issue from an economic point of view for them. So, you know, the companies that are involved in those sector, even though they may screen as cheap, you know, realistically the outlook's not that great until we get some kind of income growth coming through, which is far from transparent. The secondary implication as well is also we've had a lot of capital allocation effectively thrown to housing. Housing's not a productive asset, and it must be having an impact on productivity. We know that growth is a function of productivity, and that goes a long way in explaining our low economic growth. And when we look at that we are a capital inflow country, we need overseas capital within our financial system, it's not helpful. It actually goes into unproductive assets rather than into corporate activity, corporate expansion, you know, improving corporate productivity itself. So it also doesn't bode well for domestic companies which are reliant on lending activity as opposed to, for example, access to global credit markets, which are probably in a somewhat better position. One other implication as well is that as housing wealth is consolidated in a smaller cohort, the chances of having greater wealth disparity in Australia also rises. So those that are not participating in the housing market won't have that wealth effect that others have had. And we also know that rising wealth disparity, the Gini coefficient for those that follow economics, is actually unhelpful for long-term global growth as well. So it's a fairly conservative and dull picture, and possibly a bit of a dangerous picture for the domestic outlook and companies that are associated with levels of domestic demand.